We've got some fresh talent.
Welcome to The Skeptical Vegan, where my guest today is the one, the only, the singer, songwriter, musician, Richard Marx. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. How are you, man?
I'm fantastic. This is such a pleasure for me. I don't even know if I told you how I first got connected with you. So, as a vegan, as someone who was writing a book, I needed some...
That Grindr? I thought it was Grindr.
Yes, it was on Grindr. I swiped left.
I hope that means you thought I was cute.
I know, me too. So, I needed celebrities to endorse my book, The Skeptical Vegan, that was coming out. And
right.
Lo and behold, I'm on Twitter, and you had performed at a Mercy for Animals event. And I think Daisy was there as well, and you did some sort of piano. It was beautiful, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, Richard Marx, because I'm what you would truly call a kid of the 80s, because I graduated high school in 85, which puts me smack dab in the middle of everything, right? When MTV came out, when you started to soar, your first hit was in 87, is that right?
Correct.
And you were 24 years old.
That's 23.
Oh my gosh.
Don't age me, man.
I was using that as a reference to say, how did that feel as a 23-year-old to write such incredibly popular songs?
That whole period of like 8 or 10 years, from 87 to 97, was incredibly exciting and all that, but it was also just a bit of a blur. And not because I never did any drugs, so it wasn't that. It was just that the treadmill of making a record, touring, album tour, and I started touring all around, internationally around the world. So it did completely turn my life upside down, but that was the whole idea, the whole plan.
Yeah.
So the fact that it kind of kicked in at the tender age of 23 could have been a disaster had I not had an incredible support system in my family.
Yeah.
And the short answer is it was freaking awesome. It was,
well,
the one day, you're walking through a mall, to get a CD or something, and the next day, people are coming up to you because your video was on MTV.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a whirlwind.
Just so incredible. And I didn't tell you this too, and I'd be remiss in not mentioning it. You played Royal Albert Hall in 1989.
Yep.
My wife was there, and she wants to know if you remember seeing her in the audience.
Of course I do. I remember exactly which one she was.
Third from the left, right?
Yeah.
So she went to school.
That was a really exciting show.
Oh, really?
I remember that show.
That's
I remember
awesome.
that. That was the first time I'd ever played the Royal Albert Hall. I played there a few years ago for the first time in a long time, and there's something so magical about that venue. So that's cool. She saw a good one then.
She got an opportunity to see a lot of the U.S. acts that would come over and play, whether it's for the first time or part of a European tour. She'd get to see them play.
And it was your wife really that kind of got you into the vegan movement, right?
That's right, yeah. And actually, I was going to ask you that as well. Was it your wife that got you into the vegan movement?
No. Daisy's not here, or else she would either tell me I'm full of shit or she would back me up on it. When I met Daisy, I had already been most of my life a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. I stopped eating red meat when I was 18. In my 20s and 30s, I kind of dabbled in poultry. I would have, turkey at Thanksgiving, or I'd have a turkey sandwich or whatever, but no red meat. And then years ago, as with a lot of us, it was a series of documentaries that the first one for me was Food Inc.
Yeah.
And I saw it right when it came out, and I never ate. That was it for all meat, all poultry, everything. So then I became, I would say, a 90% vegetarian and a 10% pescatarian. And I still kind of bought into the myth that I needed fish for protein and I needed B12, and I just didn't do the research that I ended up doing. And it was just through a series of documentaries, Forks Over Knives. And when I met Daisy 5 years ago. She was curious about making the shift. Yeah. She started to read and see documentaries, and she was like, I think I'm ready to completely flip this over. And I think, if anything, I was more influential on her.
Oh, wow.
As a primarily vegetarian.
Yeah.
So what was kind of fun is that we chose to eliminate all animal products at the same time, based upon we were watching documentaries together and reading articles together and talking all the time about it. So it was, I guess it was like maybe almost 3 years ago that we one day just went, you know what, we're done with all this. And for me, the big moment for me that ended Fish was seeing this movie called Blackfish.
Oh my gosh, I know, yeah.
Which is interesting because it's really not about veganism.
Seafood, right?
It's not about any of that stuff. It's
right.
For anybody that's seen the film, it's really an expose on the horrendous, animal captivity or whale captivity.
Yeah. It
business.
sheds such light on the ridiculousness of the human species. We'll be back right after this commercial break.
First 7 singles released by my next guest all reached the top 5 in the Billboard charts, which is a record for a solo artist. Richard Marx. Richard Marx. Richard Marx.
The wide range of music I've been able to be a part of as a songwriter and as a producer is so amazing.
And the Grammy goes to Richard Marx and Luther Vandross for Dance with My Father.
That guy has written more hit songs for more people.
Man, you don't slow down, do you?
I try not to.
4 decades of #1 hits. Isn't that incredible?
Shame on me. I forgot to remember to forget. Should've left her in my history. And I feel like I'd be better off dead. I forgot to remember.
This episode of The Skeptical Vegan brought to you by Brewing Good Coffee Company. Drink coffee, save animals. Welcome back to The Skeptical Vegan, where we're talking to Richard Marx. So Blackfish, to me, it resonated because all of a sudden I saw what we were doing as humans to take these majestic creatures and make them perform for us. It was so ludicrous that everyone's applauding this massive orca in a bathtub.
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my arms around that.
There's a scene where they come and they capture a baby orca from the ocean, and the family of the baby orca gets in a circle. Yeah. And they won't disperse, and they actually, you can hear them crying. You can hear, it's wailing, but the sound they're making is of anguish.
Yeah.
Their baby, this part of their family has been pulled away from them. They don't know what's happening. They're highly intelligent creatures, so they know that it's not good. But for me, Eric, it was really interesting because I sat there, and in that moment, I could feel like any human being would see in that scene, and you feel horrible for the whales. And then my next thought was, how do I know that the family of salmon from the piece of salmon I ate last night didn't do the same thing or feel the same thing? And it was like, how dare I make the difference? Whales is one thing, but salmon's just. And that was it. That was it. That was the end of pescatarian. And so within a few months, the natural progression was then to eliminate dairy and just become vegan.
Yeah. Follow Richard on Instagram and Twitter and all of the other social media channels because you get to live vicariously through Richard Marx's life, which includes Daisy Fuentes.
Yeah, follow me if only because I post hot pictures of Daisy Fuentes.
Are you saying that because she's not there, or would you say it if she was there?
No, even if she was here, she appreciates that.
Awesome.